Put a star next to that one. An outstanding play by DJ LeMahieu.
Not in time, and Reyes has his 500th career stolen base. Luis Guillorme ties the game with a pinch hit home run. Oh, wow!
It's good today, and like a good flavored Torres is there.
And welcome back to the Battle in New York podcast. It is episode 15, The Gang versus the All-Star Break. Don't adjust your television set. We have fully been staffed. Matt, welcome back, Bobby. How you feeling? I know you were on the IL last week. We forgot to tweet it out because our social media guys are dope. But how you feeling, pal?
Honestly, I'm feeling refreshed. I'm ready to go again. Got caught by a little bugaboo. At the end of the week last week. I think I was a little overworked. So
I think a lot of Yankee fans are overworked right now. It has not been fun, but just happy that we got the team back together right before one of the most fun times of the year, which is the home run derby. Now, I don't like the changes to those rules. I miss the old-fashioned way, but I'll talk about my stuff in a little bit. Who wants to kick this one off? We didn't really set a lineup, so the floor is everybody's.
they're setting up the home run derby champ to come back and take his title back. I mean, this is one of the weakest home run derby fields I've seen in the past 5 years. And for them to, Pete can just stroll in. And I think it's a bigger upset if Pete doesn't win this home run derby than if the Yankees miss the playoffs, because the stars are aligned. He can do, his little pre-derby meditation. He can, jam out while some woman has a torn ACL in the outfield. He can do all of that this year. This is all for him.
Yes, this is definitely Pete Alonso's event, but I'm going to kick it over to our Mets half of the team. Let's lead off with that stuff, guys. How do you feel about Pete participating annually? Is it something that you like? Is it something that you don't like? What are our thoughts on that? And then we can circle back to the stuff we talked about pre-show.
I mean, I normally love it. I'm not really a big fan of Pete right now with his lack of what feels like production and for our team. He kind of has been floating and not really doing his thing in this big year for him. We know that that's probably a big reason why he is an all-star, is to get him into that home run derby, because it is fun to watch him. I do enjoy watching him when he does the home run derby. I know a lot of people are always like, the home run derby can always mess up a guy's swing. I can truly let you know that I am praying that it will fix his swing, because he has not been smashing home runs like he usually is. But I enjoy it. Right now, I'm not the happiest person with Pete Alonso, but I am excited to watch and cheer for him.
I mean, I just think about last year when Pete was batting 220 and everyone was complaining, and now he's batting 245. But he's hitting way less home runs, so everyone's mad about it. Pete's best when he's just slugging home runs. So it's like you said, if anything, the home run derby will fix him, because that's just what Pete does. Pete's a slugger. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. That end of the Yankee game is wild right now. But I'm not excited for the home run derby, but let's be real. It's also exciting because we get to see Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. smash dingers. At least the MLB was able to get two young stars, but also shout out to no one wanting to participate, because the MLB had to call Marcell Ozuna to get him to show up. That's how desperate they were.
It does bug me that Marcell Ozuna is in it. That does irk me. It's for the home run derby is a marketing event for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off that. I can confidently say that none of us in here like Marcell Ozuna. I apologize for not looking up. I was just doing a little homework to double check who the field was. And for those of you for those of you that don't know, the Home Run Derby participants this year are Gunnar Henderson, Pete Alonso, Alec Boehm, Bobby Witt Jr., Marcelo Ozuna, Jose Ramirez, Adolis Garcia, and Teoscar Hernandez. So definitely a weaker field than traditionally. It is cool that Pete does it consistently. My NL MVP pick, Pete Alonso. And Marcelo Ozuna is trash. But yeah, I think, sorry, I know we just pivoted, but if Pete doesn't win this, I mean, it's got to be a little embarrassing.
I will say I could see Adolis Garcia winning it too, just because he's got the home stadium vibes going, and that guy hits moonshots. Someone that should be in the home run derby every single year, in my opinion, is Julio Rodriguez. His swing is tailor made for it, as long as he doesn't get tired at the end of it. So I would have loved to have seen a Pete Julio matchup again, because that's been like the past couple years, even though Julio's come out on top the past couple years. Like, it's been cool to kind of, see those guys have literally the tailor-made swing for the home run derby. So I'm sad to not see him in it. Understandably so. He's going to get the week off because he's not an all-star, if I remember correctly, and nor should he have been this season. But his swing is tailor-made for it. I think that other than Pete and Adolis, I think it's going to be it's still going to be fun to watch. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be underwhelming.
For sure. I mean, it feels like kind of with the dunk contest. For those of you that watch the NBA, it's like the best guys don't necessarily do it all the time. LeBron, I don't think has ever done a dunk contest, for example. I know, sort of revert that back to baseball, it's like Judge not doing the home run derby, and I'm kind of glad that he doesn't. It was cool that he won it, and like that's great. But it's nice to see someone like Pete Alonso make a consistent effort to at least have eyes on the derby and see what he's going to do. Yeah, whether it's hitting a child with a ball accidentally, we can't prove anything, or winning. He's going to give us a show. He's going to give us something to talk about on Twitter, at the water cooler, anywhere. But we're going to go ahead and parlay that over to our all-star predictions from the start of the season. And boy, if you were not listening, that was our first episode together. We said, let's get all this out. Let's have a little bit of fun. And let's recap who we picked versus who got in. Car, let's have you go first.
All right. So for the Mets, I did get our only all-star, Pete Alonso. I also said Lindor, Alvey, and Edwin Diaz. I don't know why. That they were also going to be all-stars. I feel like out of those three that didn't make it, Mets fans always have an issue with voting for Francisco Lindor. So that was a long shot that they were hopefully going to give him his accolades this year. But Alvey, I feel like if he didn't get hurt, there could have been a case for him and people voting for him more, because I think he's a really likable, character on the Mets, for more than just Mets fans to vote, but other fan bases to vote for. And then for the Yankees, I got Soto, Judge, and Clay. I also threw Volpe in there. He let me down.
I'm going to cut you off right there. I think Anthony Volpe has the hardest way to get into the All-Star game, and I'm going to tell you why it's harder than Francisco Lindor right now. Certain Mets fans might hate Francisco Lindor and not vote for him, but there are a ton of fans that want to see Anthony Volpe fail. It's the Gunnar Henderson show and the Bobby Witt Jr. show. Everybody loves those guys, and everybody just loves to hate Anthony Volpe, and I can't stand it. Now, are his numbers good enough to be an all-star? No. He started out strong, and it's dipped. However, the Volpe slander needs to stop. I think it's totally unfair.
But what's funny? You're saying that. I think you can make the same claim for Francisco Lindor and truthfully Brandon Nimmo as well, because I think a lot of Mets fans expect perfectionism out of an all-star. So they're like, well, I'm going to show him by not voting for him. Or it's old people who don't even want to vote. There isn't that push like other fan bases have, which makes, doing these predictions damn near impossible because we are at the beck and call of fan bases, not numbers, not production, other people just like us who are, stuffing the ballot boxes, so to say. Cough, cough, Phillies, cough, cough.
So I hear what you're saying, and certain fan bases definitely know how to rally their troops. The Blue Jays do a great job of it every year. It's always their guys pushing and getting close. A lot of Orioles fans this year, and I'm just talking mostly AL East because that's what I've been paying attention to. They tend to rally the wagons. But also in the AL, the Astros do a really good job. Astros fans do a really good job of pushing their guys in. And you're right. The Phillies did a great job this year getting a lot of their guys in. It just kind of stinks that as New York baseball fans, we don't rally the troops to get votes in.
I think it's because we hold such high expectations for our guys, and I'm not saying that it's wrong of us to do so, but to your point, Caroline, if Francisco Alvarez didn't get hurt, he absolutely would have been an all-star. I mean, not only he has great numbers, first of all, and limited time right now, obviously, but the Mets also play significantly better when he's on the field. So I think that the Mets obviously have had a better, crazy to say this at this point, but a better first half than I think was expected, or right around it. I mean, I think, Rich, you said at the beginning of the year you would love to see them be like 500 or a couple games over at the end of the season. So that's where you guys are right now. So that's a great thing, but with Francisco Alvarez in the lineup, you guys are significantly better than that. So I think that it would have changed the narrative a little bit on his voting.
The notes we had, I'll go next. So for the New York Metropolitans, I also said Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Alvi, and Kodai Senga. Now, to be fair, this was before Senga. I believe it was before Senga got hurt. Don't check the tape. Just let me run with it. It's very hard to get guys in when we are so critical of them, but got Pete. So 1 for 4. Hey, 250 is not bad on the Yankees right now. That's batting like you could lead off and hit 250 for the Yankees right now.
The thing is, Pete's only in because he's a reserve. Not one Met was voted in. And I think that lends itself to this conversation about, remember that one time that this guy did this. I'm never rooting for him again. That is so Mets coded. It's not even funny. Mets fan coded, I should say. So, Mets fans tend to do this thing where they try and hold people to this super high standard that they don't even live to. But yeah, like we all put Pete, but that's because MLB picked him.
Yeah, we're very petty people, for sure. And for the New York Yankees, I very confidently said Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. Shocker. But I also went ahead and picked Gleyber Torres, Garrett Cole, and Anthony Rizzo. And oof, what some awful decisions. I really thought Gleyber was going to take the next step forward and get in. He's always been borderline, and I feel like, and Matt, you can jump in if you don't agree. I feel like a lot of Yankee fans, most years with Gleyber, end up crying that he was a snub. I really thought this was the year he was going to push the ball over the goal line, so to speak. But he didn't. Garrett Cole, I couldn't really, again, this was pre-injury or pre how serious the injury was. And Anthony Rizzo, I really thought he would recover and beat the CTE allegations, but here we are, lasagna brained and a broken arm. So sucks to suck.
We have an all-star at first now. We're good.
Yeah, we do. We got the Rice Bowl. But let's kick it down to Rich. You remember your predictions, Bobby?
Oh yeah, Pete. I was on Lindor, I was on. The world's just wrong. Diaz, tough, but is what it is. So I technically got one with Pete, but I also feel like Pete's in the All-Star game because he's in the home run derby, and Lindor didn't make it because Mookie and Trey deserved it, but Lindor should be a reserve. So I'll take that as batting. 333, not bad. I had Stroman. More just he's not an All-Star obviously, but still better than Rodon. Soto obvious. Holmes, looking back, probably shouldn't have made it, but still happy for the guy. And Judge, so 3 for 4 with the Yankees. Yeah, it should be the All-Star game. I don't get as excited for nowadays, but my big thing is they need to stop having all these relief pitchers make the All-Star game. They need to have more just the best players. Why are these random relievers in the All-Star game when they pitch 40 innings when starters that pitch 110 are not, and guys like Francisco Lindor are not? It's just ridiculous.
So those are two great points. I want to just pose a question to you guys, and let's see where this goes. So I think, again, we're all in agreement that Lindor should have made it, right? How would you guys feel about an out of position thing? So let's say he makes it, because you're right, Trey and Mookie were deserving candidates. But how would you feel about Lindor playing second in the All-Star game? Kind of like how Tim Anderson back at the WBC, was that last year, played second when he's a traditional shortstop. How would you guys feel about that? Let's say that was
only if they're utility guys, not
Okay.
a pure shortstop like Lindor. If Mookie played second, I'd be okay, but not a pure shortstop. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying.
If Nimmo played center field instead of left, something like that. Speaking of All-Star snubs, but
see, I don't hate the idea, but I'm definitely on Rich's train. Also, Tim Anderson's probably working at 5 guys now or something. Just because the dude forgot how to hit after the WBC. I guess J-Ram really knocked it out of him, but no, I think that I'm with Rich in terms of I think that what would be best is, instead of looking at it as a starters and relievers for pitchers, it should just be pitchers. Because then let's be fair, it's really not going to be relievers, right? You're going to get Mason Miller in there, obviously. You're going to get maybe one other guy, but it's not going to be an obligated spot. Pitchers are pitchers, and we know that the more valuable pitchers in baseball are starting pitchers. So they're probably going to be in the All-Star game. I think that would just make a little bit more sense.
I don't really feel any type of way about how we position them, but I can see, we're talking right now about how it's nearly impossible for Major League Baseball to get anyone to do the home run derby. I think if we continue to snub players who deserve it, I think we're going to get more and more guys who are just I don't really want to be part of the All-Star break. I want to take a rest. I want to take this time. So I think MLB does have a problem with how players are feeling. Rich brought up Brandon Nimmo, and he literally said, I'm just not winning the popularity contest right now. That's a really great example of how guys will be no, F you. I didn't make it last time when I deserved it. I'm not going to get a pity invite. And they might just say, I'm going to take the week of rest. I deserve it. So I really think that whatever they do, whether it be moving people around to different positions, there definitely needs to be something that they do to answer this problem that I really do think they're going to be facing in the near future. If it's just going to continue solely being, fan voting.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the harder parts of All-Star games is the snubbing. And it is really, at the end of the day, a popularity contest. One of my favorite examples, and it's not baseball related, but when they were voting for the Madden cover, the first time they did it, everybody rallied together and picked Peyton Hillis, who was a scrub running back for the Browns. And the man got on the cover of Madden and is a meme to this day. So popularity contests can be kind of petty, and the popular choice isn't always the correct choice.
What about Zaza Pachulia for the NBA?
I love
2 years in a row.
It's
Yeah.
electric. But yeah, that was my first part of listening to what you had to say, Rich, was that popped into my mind. And the second thing is, I don't think Clay Holmes deserved to be an all-star. And I'm not just saying that as the certified Holmes hater. I think he sucks.
What was it last night? We barely ever win games. He comes in for a save and he almost blows it. I don't think he should have been an all-star.
He almost blows it every fucking night. Like I don't know.
I know.
And you know what? It's funny. Everybody, Clay Holmes is good. Clay Holmes is good. Clay Holmes is good. You know what? I'm just so tired of being right. Because what did I tell everybody? I love our teammate Will from Yankees Files. But what did I fucking tell him? I said the second I give ground on Clay Holmes, the dude shits his pants. It happens every goddamn year. I'm tired of it. People, depending on if we edit this out or not, guys, who do you think made the All-Star team that shouldn't have?
Honestly, they got all the starters they did a good job with.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Give or take a couple, the starters were great. It was the reserves that was the issue to me. I don't know. I'd have to look through. There's nothing egregious to me. I think it's more that like Christian Walker should have made it, but Pete had to be in the home run derby, which honestly ended up affecting Nimmo because I think Nimmo was the most deserving Met. A little more than Lindor, actually, just because the left field position is so weak. But that's my takes on all that.
Yeah, I think there's always an argument for like this person should have made it, this person should have made it, but it's like who comes out then? And like you talked about Pete, but other than that, I mean, pretty much everyone in the game is deserving of being in the game. Obviously, I don't want Marcell Ozuna in it, even though he's having a great year. So I guess I'll say that, but we don't judge as for the All-Star game. You don't go based off of character, unfortunately. It's just based. It should be based off of character. It's the All-Stars. You want to promote the game. I said that earlier with the home run derby.
If if the All-Star game was based on DUIs, Marcell Ozuna would be Barry Bonds. So
it's true.
I tweeted that he should have to drink a beer after every home run he hits, just to make it fun. So after like the second round, when they're like, "Who's up?" It's like Marcell Ozuna from the Braves.
And awesome. If it was based off of DUIs, Tony La Russa would be the manager.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they should definitely put a body cam on Ozuna while he plays. Not like the umpire cam, like a body cam, like the cop from Georgia that walked up to him, so we can get all of his get him drunk, put a body cam on him, and let it go. I think that would be a lot of fun.
By the third round, it will be like Carlos in the bench warmers with his pitching coach. He's going to be trying to hit dingers and be like, "Look at all those albinos." Hilarious.
That's what I was going for. I'm glad you got that. All right, Matt, you're up, Boogie.
Yeah, so I obviously had Judge and Soto. No brainer, right? My ones that I was definitely wrong on is I said Stroh, who's had a good year. He's not, all-star worthy, but he's been decent. And I said Austin Wells, who, although he's playing decent as of late, he had an absolutely abysmal start to the season. So what a terrible take, on my opinion. And then for the Mets, I said, I gave you guys two. I said Pete Alonso, and I said Francisco Lindor. Obviously, we've talked about Pete being in the game. I think that Lindor deserves to be in the game way more, but there's definitely a position logjam. So, there's just some positions in baseball that are a little bit deeper than others, and shortstop always seems to have a good battle going there. So, yeah, funny that the world champs are hosting, and it just kind of interest. Like, I don't know. I kind of like that it is being hosted by the reigning world champs. Yeah, isn't that kind of like I don't know. There's like a good feeling with that, even though they're not having a great season. Like, it kind of just feels like the way it should be, even though it logistically is not possible.
It's also it's a cool ballpark. I have friends who like just went there. They said it was sick.
Yeah.
It's just like so state of the art.
Johnny's Lasagna, friend of me, went to watch Judge hit 62. And every time I hang out with him, he always brings it up, always talks about how cool it is. And I know he's in sales in real life, but he does a damn good job of selling that park to me every single time we talk. That just made me think of one question before we move forward. And that is, well, technically it's two questions. How would we feel about the defending World Series champion hosting the All-Star game in the next year? They do it. Don't they do it with the managers? Why not? Why not double down? Why not have that? You win the World Series, you get to host the All-Star game. Now I know logistically and business-wise that's not necessarily efficient, but we're living in fantasy land where money's not real. What is inflation? So how would we feel about that? Let's say you win the World Series. Is that an extra motivator to win the World Series, would you say?
For front offices, it absolutely would be because it's more money. In terms of why Major League Baseball wouldn't do it, it would be because, say, you have a team like the Astros recently, who went to how many World Series? What if they had won all of them and then they have the All-Star game for 5 years in a row in Houston? It's like that kind of sucks. And it's not really evenly spreading out the wealth. But in terms of would it be an extra motivator? Absolutely, because at the end of the day, other than Steve Cohen and whatever owner says they care the most about winning, which probably isn't 100% true, they just care about the money. So any way that they can make more money, it would definitely motivate them to put the best foot forward to get that World Series.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the case, I think the Yankees would. I think Hal Steinbrenner would spend more money than God every single year, and we'd be talking about a new dynasty. But that's not the case. But that's just my take. I do have a great follow-up question, but let's hear from Caroline and Rich first before I bring it up.
I mean, my sentiment's the same. You have ownership that believes tanking is the way to go. They won't invest money into their product, but they may invest money into their product if it means bringing more people to their ballpark. So yeah, I definitely think for certain people it could be a great motivator.
And I think you would have to jumpstart it by saying, like, so say they announce it at this All-Star game, it would have to start in like 2028. So like the winner of this year would get 2028 and 2029. So it would be an incentive, but like you would see it reap its advantages a couple of years in advance. So the logistics would have to be settled out. But it's a good idea. What was your follow-up, Joey?
Thank you. Yeah, and so my next question, actually, how you guys feel about where the All-Star game is hosts the World Series? Now, I'm just thinking of this for conversation based, but it's an interesting thought that crossed my mind. We all might be in agreement. We all might say, Joe, this is stupid, and then we can move forward and cut it. But what do we think?
I think there's a thing about having home field advantage and then being away. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that could be a conversation if every ballpark was like the same dimensions. If one ballpark wasn't a pitching ballpark and one was for batters, you know what I mean? There's such nuance to your home field that is meaningful to either the pitcher or the hitters on that team. And I think that wouldn't be necessarily super fair to the fans who live, breathe, and die their home team.
Joey, go tell a group of Phillies fans that. You know what I mean? It's those fans that I think, like the Astros, I think would actually be happy because they can't win a playoff game at home. But like, imagine telling Phillies fans that, or like trying to think of a team that's always in the World Series. But you tell Braves fans that, like, wouldn't fly. You know what I mean? I feel
Yeah,
like
but
there's
they
something
won't
about
show up. They don't show up until the postseason anyway. So
who, Braves fans or Phillies?
Braves fans.
Oh, Phillies fans regular season, but Braves fans, yeah, they're trying to still read the calendar because they're learning.
I don't know.
See, I think I'm right with Caroline on this. Like, fans like us, can you imagine like the Yankees make the World Series and they're playing in Seattle or they're playing in,
That'll be asked to
Toronto?
have to go to Oakland.
Can you imagine if it was in the Coliseum?
Like I said, that'll be pretty ass.
Yeah, or like Canada. Then you got to get a whole you got to go through
Right.
customs.
Fenway. Imagine hosting the World Series at Fenway.
That'd be
True.
electric. Imagine
But,
a Yankees World Series win at Fenway.
That would be electric, low key.
I think it would be funny, but I'd also be sad not being able to go to Yankee Stadium and experience that in the New York environment where we really kind of pour our hearts out there, we kind of put it all out there as fans when we go to these games and watch them on TV and everything. So I think that it was cool to see it in 2020 because obviously it had to be that way, but it was kind of neat to kind of have this literal bubble of literally just baseball. But I think in terms of being a fan and wanting to experience it live, I wouldn't be a huge proponent of it.
Were you referring to Ahmed Rosario's walk-off home run at Yankee Stadium off of Aroldis Chapman? Because that was pretty cool.
Doesn't matter. 2020 off Chapman and Ahmed Rosario hit it. Those things. It's all Mickey Mouse bullshit.
And honestly, Rich, I liked it better when your mute button wasn't working.
Was working. Oh, you're right. Shit.
It was working too well.
So here's my take on it. I think it's really cool when they do it for NCAA. I know they don't exactly. That's not exactly how it works in the NCAA, but it is cool to see something like that in college. I have mixed feelings. I'd lose my mind if some fan base took over Yankee Stadium. Even an obscure one, I would be so mad. I don't know. It was just food for thought. And
not only that, think about Yankee Stadium. Think about the Red Sox playing a World Series in Yankee Stadium, and Yankee Stadium's forced to sell Red Sox merch.
Or even worse, play Sweet Caroline.
Yeah.
But that's just the flip side of what we were talking about. Oh, imagine the Yankees winning the World Series at Fenway. That's baseball. God, I don't know.
I think it would be lit to have some team. Can you imagine a bunch of trying to think of a team, a bunch of Cubs fans. It's at Citi Field partying up with Grimace. I feel like that would be kind of sick.
Waving the W with Grimace holding the W, doing a keg stand.
Yeah, that would be kind of sick.
With OMG on in the background.
Can't delete that, baby.
No, that was a really great segment. But if we're all done, I'm going to kick it over to a brand new segment that we have, which is called Fielding Questions. So if you don't follow us on Twitter, our Twitter @ are in the little scroll below. Do us a favor. We record every Thursday, unless stated otherwise. Hop on there. We're always going to prompt a question now. But we're going to go ahead and field some Twitter questions. And we'll talk about all this stuff. So I'll go first, or I'll just read all of them. First one is from Kin Noseball, and he said, out of all, capital all, of the issues this team currently has, bullpen, infield, starting pitcher, maybe even a third outfielder, Gleyber Torres is the least of these issues and still has value on the team down the stretch. What do we think? Matt, you can go first. Actually, Karen, Rich, you guys can go first, and then Matt, as my fellow Yankee fan, we'll go next.
I mean, I've been to a decent amount of Yankee games, not enough to say.
Oh yeah, you have.
Yeah, that I consistently watch the Yankees. I don't have yes, but I think that Gleyber Torres can't be considered the least of these issues. I've seen fielding blunders, I've seen killing rallies, I've seen a lot of issues this year. And Joe and I have talked a lot about this, but specifically about body language. He mentioned it with Clay Holmes. Gleyber's body language is not the best. He seems pretty defeated. I mean, I would be too. I think that I don't think you can say that Gleyber is the least of these issues. I think he's pretty high on the list of issues.
My only thing is like with Gleyber, like if Gleyber is your biggest problem, then you guys were never contenders. Like he's important, but he's not the key piece of the puzzle. I think Gleyber's part of a bigger issue, which is the lineup depth. There is none. That's the key. Like the guys like Volpe, Verdugo, Stanton, like that were hot to start the year aren't now. And there's just no depth within the lineup. When everyone is hitting, the lineup is deep. And when they're not, it's not. It's just the way baseball is. And I think Gleyber is a part of that problem. But I think the lineup depth and the starting pitching is regressing back to the mean. And there's been some bumps in the road with Holmes too. So I think it's not one specific thing. I think it's a culmination because everything was clicking at one time. Now everything's not clicking. And that's just kind of the peaks and valleys of baseball.
I want to build off of that because I've kind of mentioned this to Joe, and I may be totally off, but I think there's something to say about the camaraderie in that clubhouse right now. There's obviously tension, and we can lead that back to, Stroman yelling at Gleyber. That's how we can bring it back, right? What's happening in that clubhouse? I know that there's frustration, but Rich, you and I have been cheering for a team that had very similar frustrations a month, almost 2 months ago, and they had a team meeting and that camaraderie came together and it seems to help that team. I don't know about you guys as Yankee fans, but there does seem to be an issue with team building with this group. Right. And then if one person is down or if one person has an issue, that's going to seep into the rest of the team. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but there definitely feels like a disjointed group of men wearing Yankee uniforms right now versus a team playing together.
They don't look loose.
So I'll lead off on this. Caroline, you and I were there. If you listen to Not Another Sox podcast, which, by the way, I guest starred on last night, hopefully they'll be putting that out soon. I told them that we were there for the fall of Rome. So if this Yankee season completely collapses, which I pray it doesn't, Caroline and I had seats right behind the Yankee dugout at Fenway right after my birthday. And what did I tell you, Cara, when we were there?
You basically said that, I don't even remember what you said, but you were
the
miserable.
vibes are fucking off. I could see it on their faces. I could feel it. It was ugly. I'm not saying I predicted this. It is an absolute shit show right now. The state of the New York Yankees is a mess. You got to remember though that these are ebbs and flows, as Rich said, peaks and valleys in a season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I wouldn't say Gleyber is the least of the issues, but I'm gonna agree with you guys and say it's more of a sum to a greater issue, which can be culture, body language, all that. Everybody just needs to get their heads out of their asses and remember that they're the goddamn New York Yankees. And let's hope the All-Star break does that. I mean, you can't pin it on one guy, but you can sure try to. And I don't think Gleyber's the main issue, but he's definitely a big issue.
Yeah, no, so real quick, I just want to say vibes don't exist. They don't, because when you're winning, vibes are always great. Have you ever heard of a team that's playing amazing that you're like, the vibes suck for that team?
See,
Like,
I totally
Atlanta
disagree
Braves
with
every
you.
year.
I totally disagree with you.
like I've never
Braves
seen
right now.
who. Oh no, they're not playing well. You can't say the Atlanta
Their
Braves.
vibes are fine.
They're not playing great. Their vibes are fine, but they're not losing. Like they're not like a bottom tier team.
So
Do you look
why?
at do you look at the Colorado Rockies and say, you know what? That team's got vibes. No, you
So
say
Why
they
I'm going to
blow.
disagree with you is because one, let's use the Mets as an example because that's going to be my best thing. The Mets were still losing when they had that team meeting. When they had that team meeting, they came together as a group of people who were big fat losers and said, just have fun. No one expects anything from you. And that's what they did. And then what happened? They started winning. They just had fun. That was the whole goal. What I'm talking about is not a good vibe thing. What I'm talking about is how your team is treating each other. That's not vibes. That's, are you working as a team?
I'm just saying, like, in terms of like, oh well, you know, they looked, yeah, everyone's gonna be happy and all this stuff. Like, you know, Stroman's buying everyone wine bottles in the beginning of the season. We're winning. It's great. I haven't seen one goddamn wine bottle since, you know, this losing streak started. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but I've also watched Stroman like completely alienate your rookie first baseman after he saved his ass on the 4th of July. Like you have to decide what kind of personality are you going to bring to the clubhouse. Are you going to be an asshole because you're losing, or are you going to come in, try and do better and be a good teammate even if you kind of suck ass?
I mean, like, in terms of Stroman, I don't think he's a problem, even a little bit. I think he's very passionate. I don't have an issue with him whatsoever. I think ultimately winning cures all issues and kind of covers all blemishes. And again, you know, like I said, look at the teams that are bad right now, right? Like the Rockies. Look at, you know, a good example of a team that, you know, you watch and you're like, oh, they should have been better. I don't really get it. And like nobody sits here and says they have good vibes and they're selling off guys. The Cubs. The Cubs, like, were supposed to be a decent team this year. They suck.
They just swept the mighty Baltimore Orioles, who are probably going to give the Yankees headaches this weekend.
Yeah, well, you know, the Cubs won't be giving many people headaches after July 31st because they're looking to trade Bellinger. They're looking to trade JMO. They're looking to move these guys, and nobody sits here and says, you know what, the vibes are great in the clubhouse.
You keep saying vibes. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about mentality.
Oh, Joe said vibes. Joe used the word vibes, and I'm targeting Joe's quote particularly. And I really, like I said, I think it's more a feel about it in terms of Gleyber Torres. He is not the biggest issue on the Yankees. Carlos Rodon is. Rich, you hate this guy. You'll never love him, and that's okay. I don't think many Yankee fans will love him at the end of his tenure. I'm rooting for him, just, you know, for obvious reasons, and also I think that he seems like he really wears his heart on his sleeve, and it's hard to watch someone that you can obviously see is really passionate about what they're doing struggle so much. Because it's not for lack of effort on Rodon's part whatsoever. So that's what really hurts me more so than just being a Yankee fan. It just hurts me watching that for him. But I don't think Gleyber's the main issue because the lineup should be deep enough where you can cover the whole of Gleyber having issues.
Look, it takes 9 guys every day to win a baseball game. Sometimes more. I don't know. All right. Our next question is from Mike Artuso. And I'm going to be very straight up with you guys. I don't know if this is serious or not, but it says Dodgers need pitching anytime, any chance Yanks eat money and send Rodon to LA. Very funny that we're parlaying into that. I don't think that's what parlay means, but here we go. Very funny that we're pivoting over to that. shit, I don't know. What would it take to give up to send Rodon over there?
The Dodgers are desperate for starting pitching, but like the Yankees invested so much in Carlos Rodon and overpaid so much for him, they would have to eat like $100 million.
And he has a no trade clause, so he'd have
So
to
he'd
be.
have to waive that too, and like
He'd have to
they're
be okay
contending-
with that.
Yeah, he won't. I mean, he might want to go to the
Maybe.
Dodgers, but like no, I don't think it's really possible.
You know, the more I think about it, the more it could be a legitimate question. I mean, possible, no, but we've seen stranger things happen, and I feel like a lot of big money guys go to some of these teams. So, Kara, what do you think?
I don't see it happening.